Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
There's a lot of frustration on the right about the current rate of government reform in Washington, D.C. It's understandable. Trump 1.0 was undercut by a constant barrage of corruption performed under the color of law or in the name of preserving the Union, but done illegally and with the intention of subverting democracy. The deep state cabal then lied, falsified evidence, spied illegally, leaked illegally, colluded illegally, and in the process made sure that the administration was always on the back foot and peddling relentlessly to counter these palace intrigues. The 2020 election was fraudulent. Even now, more evidence comes out every day. The result of this corruption was a laughably high winning margin for Joe Biden. Once Biden took office, it was scandal after scandal, all while he waged lawfare on Donald Trump and the American citizens who stood by his side. When Trump 2.0 started, we were all hopeful that these criminal traitors would be brought to justice. Almost a year later, the results have been underwhelming, to say the least. Yes, there are some major indictments coming down, but they're being tried for the most part in America's most corrupt courtrooms in Washington, D.C. It was Washington, D.C. where Bill Durham's case against the Clinton lawyer Michael Sussman crashed against the rocks. The D.C. jury took only 6 hours to debate that case, a very short time indeed, and simply let Sussman off the hook for the role he played in the brazenly treasonous creation of the Russia collusion hoax. Granted, Sussman was just a bit player, and recently released documents show that it was none other than President Barack Obama himself who ordered the hoax, a hoax that John Brennan dutifully carried out on the American public. But what hope is there that these major players can be brought to justice if any easy layup case like Sussman's can be laughed off by a jury of his corrupt peers? In a political article, one juror stated, quote, "Personally, I don't think it should have been prosecuted because I think we have better time or resources to use or spend on other things that affect the nation as a whole than a possible lie to the FBI. We could spend that time more wisely." DC ridiculed the idea of an insurrection because they recognized the man on the stand as one of their own. Consider that in a normal federal case, over 80% are resolved by the defendant pleading guilty. Those who choose to go to trial almost always suffer the consequences. According to Pew Research, the number of cases where defendant is acquitted in trial are less than 1%. Now we're hearing news that Comey's lawyers might be able to get his case dismissed on a technicality based on how the grand jury was run by the DOJ. Such technicalities never redounded to the benefit of us J6ers in D.C. The FBI was even caught red-handed spying on incarcerated J6ers who were engaged in privileged attorney-client discussions and then passing that information on to prosecutors. Again, D.C. Court Judge Kelly didn't think it was a big deal, but just in case, he ordered the evidence of wrongdoing destroyed. What a nice guy. So then when it's a matter of the wrong people, us middle-class peons from the middle of the country, the courts are willing to bend any rule or break any regulation in order to see that we get decades behind bars for the crime of protesting. Bring out their own connected cronies, and the whole thing suddenly becomes a cocktail party of elites hobnobbing while restlessly looking at their watches, wondering when the theatrics are going to end so they can get back to the work of destroying our country brick by brick. The recent revelations about the J6 pipe bomber is another case of justice permanently delayed. It's been over a week since the original article ran on the Blaze, and despite the fact that the government has an obligation to defend any employee falsely accused of a crime, especially one as big as planting phony bombs as part of a larger plot to frame a bunch of people, Not a word has been said. Correction. It took the CIA all but 6 days to confirm that the suspect was not, in fact, running a personal security detail for the CIA head, John Ratcliffe. That denial took less than a week, according to article correction history. But the big accusation? The government is still keeping mum on. Now, why would that be? Keep in mind that the story implicates the U.S. Capitol Police Force itself as being an active participant in a seditious plot to frame thousands of innocent people. That's a big and complicated accusation. If the Capitol PD is being falsely accused, that too should take a hot minute to refute. I mean, if someone accused you or your employee of planning phony bombs as part of a distraction, would you need more than a week to mull over the question of whether or not it's true? An immediate denial would be both prudent and an easy lift, if possible. Yet we hear nothing. In a follow-up story this week, The Blaze revealed that 2 other Capitol Police officers looked right at the bombs before they had been reported. Once again, it seems the Capitol PD is playing a major role in the setup. No arrests are forthcoming, and let's be honest, even if they happened, a D.C. jury would give every defendant a hearty handshake and a pat on the back. Better luck next time. It's clear the courts are a big problem here, not just the judges, but the jurors. It's all one big happy family, and the family looks out for each other. Unlike, our families, for many of us in J6. But it's worse than that. It's the attorneys and agents working for the DOJ now. Whereas in Trump 1.1 or 1.0, they've been engaged in evidence falsification. In Trump 2.0, deep staters are more subtle saboteurs, slow-walking investigations, and possibly seeding poison pills throughout the process in order to give the likes of Brennan and Comey an easy out when it comes to it. When the government set its sights on thousands of protesters who marched in D.C. or protested at abortion clinics, thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of agents and attorneys at every level of those organizations dutifully complied with unparalleled zeal. These are the same operators we wish to turn on the government in order to clean it out? Some people blame Bondi, Patel, and Bongino. I'm not absolving them, but there's a certain kind of insanity involved in trying to fix this massively corrupt beast with what amounts to a handful of broken tools. Even a great general like George Washington is not going to win a war if his every soldier is Benedict Arnold. When I asked Grok to explain all the discrepancies behind the pipe bomber case, I wanted it to give me a percentage likelihood that those discrepancies are the result of government organ engaged in a cover-up. The answer, 85% likelihood. That's significant, considering the fact that Grok is trained on MSM articles and still refers to January 6th as a riot or attempted insurrection. So that answer is what someone who's intellectually honest would say, even if they only consumed Biden regime-preferred media. Grok can see it. We already knew it. These inconsistencies have always stood out like a sore thumb to those of us on the right. To this day, we only see more, like the recent stories on The Blaze. So forgive me if I point out the fact that justice may never come for the likes of Comey, Brennan, and Obama. Even if Trump went full Abraham Lincoln, invoked the Insurrection Act, and suspended posse comitatus, these men would most likely walk. The executive isn't the boss of the judicial. The best and most obvious solution right now would be to fire every judge on the D.C. bench and just dissolve that court circuit altogether. Here again is something beyond the power of any president of the United States. It could be done together with Congress, but right now we don't have the numbers to pass it, and even if we did, you can bet that the rhino squishes would step in and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They always have a habit of doing that. Impeaching Judge Boasberg, should such a feat be possible, would be an important first step. But at this rate, even if we could accomplish that first step, there would still be hundreds more steps to take, and who knows how long we can hold the government with Senor Black Pill Psyop out there doing his best to destroy the most powerful conservative coalition in the history of the Republic. I have no doubt that President Trump will move heaven and earth to mete out justice as much as possible. We need that justice for closure as a nation. A great many people in positions of power did many horrible things that jeopardized the lives of every American citizen. Should history show that these villains paid no price, it would only embolden a new generation of evil men with evil schemes to destroy the American dream. Personally, I think a team of SEALs endowed with judicial authority to convict and pass sentence all at once, like a present-day version of Judge Dredd, is called for. If a bit too far-fetched, considering the constitutional rights and government checks and balances. But the fact of the matter is, these bad men, are paying a price. We're not dealing with the type of drug dealers and manslaughter suspects I played basketball with in prison. The DC elite wouldn't know a smudge from a tumor, so cloistered are their lives. And by indicting them, we rob them of their most prized possession, their snobbish, self-righteous pride. And that's not all. This week there have been signs, very good signs, that things are changing for the Democrats. For one, they're incredibly and increasingly desperate. The self-owned earned by pushing for the release of the Epstein files, only to implicate the pedophile sex abuser with the highest echelons of the Democrat establishment, has been an experience as savory as it is long-awaited. It shows the party is so desperate that they will lash randomly, even at their own kind, in an attempt to score a hit, any kind of hit, on President Trump. Such bungling doesn't just reveal their desperation, it reveals their stupidity. Why are they suddenly so stupid? Hey, that's a good question. Could it be that the smart people behind the scenes have already left them? The tacticians, like the people who plotted the COVID pandemic in conjunction with the mail-in ballot fraud of 2020, were smart, savvy, and detail-oriented. What the Democrats are doing right now isn't any of that. They've been abandoned. Behind the scenes, the brains have apparently drained. I'm not sure who all these brains are, or where they all went. All I know is that the party's IQ is now so low that you can keep unused meats between Jasmine Crockett's ears. When you notice your enemy stumbling like that, it's time to press your advantage. The Dems were unable to eke out a meager PR victory from their recent election wins simply because those were overshadowed by their horrific handling of the shutdown. Literally every time they try to strike, it ends up only hurting themselves. Another sign of Democrat floundering has to be the video released this week by prissy knife and fork school grads with Little Miss CIA reminding the military that it's okay not to follow orders. When called out on their seditious nonsense, they pleaded stupid, seeing the pattern, that the PSA about lawful orders was apropos of nothing. Nothing at all. The timing is highly suspicious. Dems actually think that some hammer is going to drop. What hammer? Oh, I don't know. It might have something to do with the fact that 5 of the North Texas Antifa squad who ambushed and shot an ICE officer in the neck have pleaded guilty to terrorism charges. Think of what a huge step this is. In 4 years of overzealous prosecution, the government convicted not a single J6er of a single charge of sedition. Did they want to? Heck yes. A conviction of sedition would have given the Biden regime everything they needed to start lining us up against the walls for mass executions. But even though they lied, cheated, leaked, and spied on us, all they got was butt kiss. Fast forward to Wednesday, and now the Trump admin has its terrorism charges for Antifa members. Would that be the same Antifa that Dems claimed did not exist, while at the same time voice support for? If fear for what comes next wasn't what motivated the Dems' "Don't Give Up the Ship" video, then maybe next week we can expect another PSA about why it's a bad thing to gun deck watch logs. Apropos of nothing, right? Of course, the video was seditious in its intent. The Dem party is spurging like a toddler. Like the overgrown children that they are, they won't stop flailing until they realize no adult in the room really cares about their antics. All good news, and it shows why we must continue to fight, even when we can't be ensured of the result we want. Sure, we all want to Sparta kick Comey into a pit, but aside from the momentary feeling of relief or satisfaction, is vengeance the objective here? Is it the reason why we're doing everything we're doing? Ultimately, no. Giving him the 86 treatment after he called for the assassination of our duly elected president is just desserts. But the reason we're doing all this isn't to rid the world of James Comey. Like I said, for every James Comey we find, there are maybe 100 more lurking around the streets of D.C. Our problem is not one man or even a handful of men or a team of men like Comey. Like I said, this rot runs in the thousands of government employees. What we really need to fix things has less to do with returning pain for pain and more to do with changing the culture of our government and the culture of our country. In the face of DEI, everyone is calling for a return to meritocracy. Everyone but me. DEI was a problem, sure, but it wasn't motivated by a sincere desire to help the downtrodden. Its purpose was to place incompetent yet politically aligned activists in key government positions. By the time the very concept of DEI was floated, the writing was already on the wall. The same people who went along with that racist scheme were the ones who went along with the J6 roundups. In other words, before there was incompetence, there was sedition. There was greed and lust for power. There was subversion. There was evil. That's our fundamental problem now, and meritocracy alone isn't going to be enough to stop that. Merit is one's ability to do something well, but it's a standard that's morally neutral. Pushing meritocracy is how our government was so easily edged into the hands of scheming communists in the first place. It's not meritocracy that we should seek, but EUTOCRACY, a system whereby people are awarded for, wait for it, being good. Crazy idea, right? Yeah, if we can establish a responsible and competent EUTOCRACY in D.C., then people like Comey, Brennan, and Obama will run from D.C. like vampires from the sun. That should be our true and ultimate objective at the heart of everything we do as conservatives. Goodness doesn't tolerate greedy and self-interested or the faithless and deviantly subversive. If we establish, promote, and defend a EUTOCRATIC system, we not only end the scourge of our present-day James Comeys, but all future James Comeys to come. This is what we're really fighting to create, a government organ that would naturally reject such people like the foreign bodies that they are. Let's not lose sight of this. Let's never forget why we fight. We fight for the victory of good over evil.